Okay, seems to be working. Hey, excellent. Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Crypto Hour. Today is Friday, the 8th of May. Hey, excellent. Let's turn this off. Hi. So today there's quite a few things to go through. We'll, as usual, we'll go through. We have a look at a couple of macroeconomic news. And then we look at more like crypto specific themes and what happened this week, and we have a look at a couple of on-chain metrics as well to finish off before we go to question and answers. So let me share my screen. Okay, can you confirm that you can see my screen? Yep, fantastic. Okay. So we start from the economic calendar. Like last week, there were a lot of news regarding interest rates, which pretty much kept at the same level. This week we had the Australian dollar, which increased interest rates by 0.25%, going from 4.1% to 4.35%. And apart from that, we just had some services what's it called? Guys, I got a blank. Let me just bring it up because I can't remember. So purchasing managers inquiries, also surveys. Okay, so nothing really major, pretty much on the levels that were expected. And yesterday we had kind of like unemployment claims pretty much on similar to what was expected. We had a little bit higher than last week, but we are lower than expectations. And today we have probably the biggest news, which are the non-farm employment, called these non-farm payrolls. And this generally moves markets quite a lot, especially if the actual numbers are different from what's expected. So we have fairly good numbers last month. We basically 178,000 new jobs created. This month, the expectation is a lot lower. So the forecast is only like 65,000. We'll see when the numbers come in a few hours, about 5 hours from now. So if you see strange things in quotes, in things that you're looking at, whether they are stocks and shares or crypto or other things or exchange rates, probably will be around that time. They will be down to this. Okay, so other things that are hanging over from last week as well. There's something that's relevant for crypto, is the interest rates, in particular the ones for the pound. Last week, again, most of the interest rates last week were kept steady. So both the US and was the Japan, Canada, and also the pound, the euro was left at the previous level. Now the pound, differently from most of the others, is kept to a fairly elevated rate. But basically because there's like a wait and see policy. Let me see if there's also the wait and see policy, because although the UK is still experiencing high inflation, they recognize that a lot of this inflation is down to the oil crisis. So they don't want to lower interest rates, but at the same time, they don't want to increase interest rates because that would look punishing for the economy. So and that has an effect as well on the crypto markets. Now on the going from macro events to the say to the other events. First of all, we look at expectations for next week. Next week, remember, on the 15th of May, it's the end of the Fed chair mandate. Okay, so we should have a new Fed chair nominated, and the nomination vote is tentatively expected on Tuesday. Which is probably the biggest news. There's not necessarily a number news, but it still obviously will influence the future policy of the Fed quite a lot. So it's an important news. Also, we got inflation figure from the US, both on the producers' price inflation and consumer price inflation are coming out, and retail sales later on in the week. So nothing too large, but this is the biggest news of the week. Okay, so the US Senate will vote to pass or reject the nomination of Kevin Walsh as Federal Reserve Chairperson for a term. That goes from May 2026 to May of 2030. Okay. So we'll see what that brings. Now, from the point of view of crypto, there's kind of like three big news they are dominated in the markets this week. First of all has been the increase of interest in Zcash. Now, I don't know how many of you have followed that. There's been like a 60% increase in the price of Zcash. Now, Zcash is a privacy coin. So, and obviously I bring that up because we got another example of a privacy coin that's just been launched, like in the example of Midnight in the Cardano ecosystem. That is also something that it's making lots of contacts with important players. So you can see now there's a lot of interest because of news like where are we? Sorry, let me just bring the news like this, for example. Tether that freezes about 500 millions on Ethereum and Tron for the past 30 days. So it's nothing. So obviously they're doing it because they want to stop the proceeds of fraud and so on. But the fact that there is like one player that with a click of a finger can freeze $500 million worth of crypto, it's also troubling because the whole idea of cryptocurrency is it's the fact that there isn't anybody, any intermediary in the transaction. Now, if we then give somebody the power to do this, it is rethinking the whole way that we use blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And obviously the biggest maybe success story so far over the past year, a couple of years, have been stablecoins, which are not necessarily a crypto, a crypto native product, but it is something. It's almost like a transition product between the traditional finance and decentralized finance, almost like a needed painful addition, but we really don't want anybody to have that power to, the oversight of being able to block it with for any reason, either because the government has told them to, or because of something they see on the network rates. It's troubling that somebody can stop and freeze funds at the press of a button, pretty much. So there has been a lot of interest in Zcash. So if we look at it here on, so if you kind of look on crypto, there's so much about Zcash, and um, new interest and new products coming in because of everybody. It's yes, they want to use blockchain technology, but they're not that keen of having all their transactions seen and publicly available on the blockchain. So this is where privacy coins came into view, and this is where also at Midnight, they recently launched blockchain sidechain of Cardano is coming into this area because big banks, big investment houses don't want all their transaction publicly searchable. Okay, they want some privacy, so they want to be accountable so that they can demonstrate that everything is being done according to the rules. But at the same time, they don't want to be completely open so that anybody can look into their business. Okay, so this is something. It's going to be like a big thing going forward. And I think that over 2026 and 2027, you will see more and more interest in privacy within the blockchains and coins and projects that work in connection with projects in connection with privacy. And obviously, some obvious things can be like how digital identity can be used with selective disclosure. So you can prove, for example, that you are above a certain age, for example, to access certain services without having to divulge a lot of personal information and the person on the other side doesn't need to see. Okay, they might need to satisfy legislation to say that you can only sell certain projects as somebody that is maybe 16 or 18 or older, or 21 or older, but you don't really need to know that person's home address or eye color or so on. Okay, so all these sorts of projects have a connection with how we use products online, but at the same time keep our data safe and secure. They're going to be probably a big thing as cryptocurrency move from a fringe product to a mass product. And some products are just not going to be available on the blockchain unless that is a thing that is offered. And this is why projects like Midnight, like Zcash, like Monero are getting like a resurgence of interest because I'm thinking, well, people realize how important it is to keep privacy as part of their project. Now, another big thing, I don't know if do I have? Let me just go and look at it. I thought I had put it already. Oh yeah. Okay, don't it's okay. Um, there's lots of news about CME, but it's the main news is just that now the CME from the end of May, which is at Chicago Mercantile Exchange, so where they have a lot of derivative products, they are launching now 24/7 trading of crypto and digital products derivatives. Okay, so futures, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on, futures will trade now 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. At the moment, it's Monday to Friday. Okay, but from the end of the month is going to be like Saturday and Sunday trading as well, so that there's going to be less gaps between what happens where the market closes on a Friday and when it reopens on a Monday. Let me see, CME Group. There's lots of them on the Creamy Food. Let me see if we can find, if we can find. So this is another product, by the way. The CME Group launched Bitcoin volatility futures on June the 1st. So that enabling traders to hedge and trade Bitcoin volatility separately from the price. Um, and also Bitcoin, Bitcoin spot trading. They are thinking of CME Group are looking at launching spot trading on Bitcoin as well. So not just spot trading will not just be on crypto exchanges, okay, in the near future, but it could be also available as a on a regulated exchange like a Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So lots of things that are going through the the news, but I keep telling you every week that these are all like little building blocks that are being put in place because crypto is here to stay. All these things wouldn't happen if it were just like a passing fad. And every week we read more and more about institutions. I mean, the CME Group is massive. It's a massive player in the derivatives market, which is a market that deals in like trillions every day. Okay, trillions of dollars every day. So the fact that they are always trying to innovate and to bring new products connected to cryptocurrency is just like a fact to say that now cryptocurrency is one of the investment assets that are available for everybody to buy and sell. Okay, so now we have a look at a couple of news, and then we'll have a look at the some on-chain also indicators. But again, talking about small indicators, okay? So this is like Western Union. As you know, Western Union being used extensively to send money, to places where maybe the banking system is not available to everybody. They now launched their own stable coin on Solana called USDPT, because they realize what do you think the places like Western Union are suffering because people can transfer funds a lot cheaper than they can, and so that they are joining the crypto payment rail, because then they can offer, I imagine, products that are closer to reduce their cost and closer to the what people are getting using alternative system now and using stable coins to transfer funds to the loved one they are in another part of the world. So again, you can see like Western Union, a big player in the transfer of funds across borders, and now they are again jumping into crypto. So you see, this is like the underlying technology that will power a lot of transfers very, very quickly. It already does increasing amounts every day, every week, and now even the institutional players are using it to facilitate their transfers. Another very important news is the Clarity Act. The Clarity Act, which is legislation about the whole digital sector and crypto. Now, 52% of in Congress, there is 52% on the Clarity Act against and 11% against. So there is a very good chance that this Senate committee could vote as soon as today or today on certain aspects of the Clarity Act, and there is an expectation of that being passing the House and Senate vote on July the 4th, and that would then present this to the president for signing into law. So obviously there is a poll that puts support for the Clarity Act at about 50% in the general population, and so kind of like expectations are that this is actually going through the final negotiation before it's written into law. Okay, once this is written into law, then we have clear rails, and all the people that are into crypto companies or crypto related decentralized application, they know exactly what the rules are, they know how they can move. Okay, and I think having clarity, and it's interesting, this is called the Clarity Act, having clarity about legislation, it is obviously, some people will say it's a restriction, but at the same time, it's needed for real serious investors to get involved, and without avoiding any gray areas that they might be involved in, simply at the moment where they don't even know where the legislation is going. So we might see a real then kind of like a crypto renaissance following the approval of the Clarity Act towards the third and fourth sorry, third and fourth quarter of the year. So what are we seeing in terms of movements? So this is the daily chart of Bitcoin, and as we were discussing last week. So last week we were here. Well, Friday. So this is where last week on Friday. Okay. And what did I remember what I told you, that we already had two tests of this supplied zone that represented the last, the limit. So above this, the downtrend has been going since January of this year. And at this bottom at the beginning of February, is officially terminated. Now, to have confirmation of this, I would really like to see the closing of today's date, which is, again, I remind you, at 5 p.m. New York time. So it's still quite a few hours, like 10 p.m. London time, so in about 10 hours. Sorry, 12 hours. To see this week close above this point, because that would imply convictions that price is going to remain above this. Closing below that. So this inflection point is about 79.5. Okay, at the moment we are 79,700. So if we were to close back into the 79s or 78s, it would put a level of uncertainty again. So it means that there is, yet prices moved to about 80, almost 83 this week, but there isn't quite enough conviction to move forward. I don't normally have moving averages in my charts, but I just wanted to do this because it's relevant. This is a 200-day moving average, so it's fairly long average, and we can see that we almost touched it on Wednesday, and this is what it's could be bringing in some selling pressure onto the market, so it'd be very relevant where we see this closing today. Okay, now let's look at, before we look at other charts, let's look at a couple of on-chain metrics. Sorry, where am I? Okay. So this chart I wanted to share with you is from CryptoQuant. Thank you. This chart it shows you the on the black line is the Bitcoin price. Again, it's like a long-term chart here. Look, with it is goes from uh, all the way to 2023. So the black line is the Bitcoin price, and the blue line is the Bitcoin quantities available on exchanges. Okay, the reason being is that the Bitcoin that's being sold needs to be on an exchange first. And now you can see interesting, yeah, for when the two crossed. So the actual Bitcoin on exchanges has declined since the beginning of 2024. Okay, and now we are like a historic low level of Bitcoins on exchanges, or about 2.7 million, where like 500,000 below where we were in 2024. So the less Bitcoin there is on exchanges, the more pressure there is on the price to go up. As long as the demand being constant or demand being slightly growing, if there is less Bitcoin to sell on exchanges, there is more demand, more demand for progressively lower number of coins. Okay, so that put an upward pressure on price. On the other things that we normally look at as well is the realized price. Okay, so the realized price, the average price at which Bitcoin has changed hands. And again, it's over the past few days and weeks started slowly climbing up again. So we're now standing about 54,250. And that is, I would say, the number under which most Bitcoin holders would be at a loss. So at the moment, we're still fairly above that figure. Okay, so we are almost like 80,000 from where the realized price is about 54. But obviously, all exchanges at the moment are happening at this price. Okay, so if they are fairly new exchanges, so coming from coins that being bought or sold during the past 6 months, that would bring this average down. If it is all coins that are being exchanged, that obviously will bring the price up. If we look at the age bands for the same thing, okay, this may look a little bit confusing. Okay, and I appreciate that. So this is exactly the same chart that we were looking at before. Simply, it's looking at all different in Bitcoin, we can see exactly when a certain Bitcoin was last moved. Okay, so we can divide all the Bitcoins that are in circulation on wallets into age bands. It's like, for example, this line here, the green line, is of coins that haven't been moved for 10 years or longer. Okay, and then you can see the price. So coins they haven't moved for 10 years or longer, they are on wallets at an average of $110. How crazy is that? How would you like to own a Bitcoin that you bought for $110? Yeah, but obviously these are coins that have been in wallets for 10 years or more. The ones that have been in they've been bought from 18 months to more than 18 months. So you can see from 18 months to 2 years, they've been bought at $63,800. And then the further away you go, then the more the price drops. So coins that have been bought 18 months ago or more than 18 months ago have been bought considerably lower prices than today. All coins that have been bought recently from 18 months and below, you can see they've been bought at higher prices than today. You can see 93,000 for 18 months ago. I mean, 111,000 62 months ago, 87, 3 to 6 months, and so on. Okay, so most of those are above current prices or just about the same. Okay, so the average of all these age bands makes the what we saw, the realized price average that we saw in the previous chart. But it's interesting to see how these averages are moving for different age bands. Obviously, the very low one of 0 to 1 day will follow current price, and the ones that they are also they are very young in a way. They've been exchanged fairly recently. They will be close to the current price. But we can see that this 6 to 12 months range, for example, have been steadily growing, and most of these, as you can see, they have got like a positive incline. Okay, the only ones they are really pushing the average down are the ones that are the more recent movers. Okay, so they're like 3 to 6 months old, or the 1 to 3 months old movements. So there has been an interesting process of, and you can see a lot of the recent price moves are being kind of like the young, what they call the not the solid Bitcoin holder hands, which is interesting to look at. Also, we want to have a look at CoinGlass. Where is this? Sorry, let me just have a look at the heat maps. Sorry, it wasn't what I was looking at, what I wanted to look at. Just give me a second. Liquidation heat map. There we are. So this is the kind of the liquidation heat maps. So it shows you where traders are positioned more heavily, and where they could be where you could trigger a much stronger move above certain points. Now, if we can see here for the bottom, there's a lot of resistance around the 78,000. This is the most recent. Or maybe you want to look at 1 week. So let me just log in just a second. So we can see there is quite a resistance around the 78, high 78, low 79,000 level. So we can, this shows the positioning kind of below which there would be, if there were like a drop from here, then we will go into this area around the mid 77s from 79,000. But also it shows you that there isn't a lot above that point. So you can see here there is really nothing above here. That it's so the selling pressure is pretty much evaporating on a let's have a look at this on literally on a daily basis. Is now standing at about between 80.5 and 81.5. But if we look at weekly or monthly, there's a lot less presence. So you can see this now. The real the real pressure may be around the 83 and a half, which is the previous peak. On a long-term basis, which is mostly what we're interested in, real pressure, there's 2 points, and which is fairly intuitive. You can see like the recent peaks. Okay, so this is the one peak. There is a big peak at about 100,000, and then from there we go all the way to the all-time high of 126. So there isn't that much. Once we over this peak that we are fighting with at the moment, around the 80,000 level, then from then on, as soon as we gained confidence that we're above that point, the next fighting battle is around 100,000. There isn't that much in between. Okay, so that's interesting to be seen. Now let's have a look back at what time is it? Like just 5 minutes. We look at this and then we go into some Q&A. So we can see now it's kind of like, in a way, Bitcoin is not really rushing up, it's more like inching upwards more than anything else. Now let's have a look at the other as well, the other parts of the crypto world. We look at aggregators here, so we're not looking at individual coins, okay? But we look at so this is the crypto total market cap. We see very similar to the Bitcoin level. Okay, so we're still fighting with this, with this supply zone here. Oh, come on. Okay, so we're still fighting against the supply zone here with the crypto market cap. And let's see, first of all, let's have a look at Bitcoin dominance. So recently we've gone back. Let me just remove this. So we have gone back above 60%. Okay, so we still haven't seen the altcoin, the altcoin strength, because what this is telling us is that since during April, Bitcoin has grown stronger in proportion to all the other coins in the market, because this is what Bitcoin dominance means. So what percentage of the Bitcoin total, sorry, the crypto total market cap is represented by Bitcoin? At the moment, we stand at 60.8%. Okay, so we are still, so when you're looking at it on a long-term basis, we are still in this big supply zone from last year, July of 2025. So between 60 and 62%. And really to have the altcoin period that they were waiting for, we really need to make a new low below this point here. Okay, so we want to go below the 57%. Now, if the Bitcoin dominance moves below that point, it doesn't mean that Bitcoin is lower in price. It just means that there is, the altcoins are growing faster than Bitcoin. So if we look at it here in 2021, between December 2020 and May 2021, Bitcoin trebled in price during that time and more. Okay, but all coins were growing a lot faster. So the total market cap went from 74% to below 40%. We're waiting for a similar thing to happen now. Okay, not necessarily to the same levels, but we are expecting, Bitcoin to represent less than 50% of the total market cap, and that would mean quite a resurgence in quite a lot of Bitcoin or altcoins. So we look at all the aggregators then. So this is the total too, which means, okay, the crypto market cap excluding Bitcoin. Okay, so we'll see the Let me just open another one. We don't need to shift all the time. So I remind you, this is the Bitcoin chart. Okay, and look at the angle as well. Let me just remove all the drawings. Look at this angle from March to where we are right now. And this is the rest of the Bitcoin, sorry, the rest of the crypto market excluding Bitcoin. So you can see that's much slower growth than the Bitcoin chart. Can you see that? That's much steeper angle. Okay, so we still if we take Bitcoin away, they're still growing. And taking Bitcoin away, the total crypto market cap has still made 15% from March. Okay, in a couple of months. So it is still growing, but not as fast as Bitcoin. The same thing in Bitcoin has been 23% against 15%. Okay, so going further, we look at total 3. There is the total market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So that has most of the other Bitcoins, but exclude the other big crypto coins, but excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. And again, talking about 10%. So again, it's a little bit less. 23%. Remember, was 15% total 2. Yeah. So again, it's telling you that the all coins really haven't got going yet. Okay. And then the last one is you're looking at the others. And these are again all the crypto market, including the top 10 coins. And interestingly enough, when you look at the smaller coins, so these are represent the smaller projects, because once you take, the top 10 projects have the majority of the market cap. So it's interesting to see the smaller coins are moving in line with Bitcoin. They've done pretty much the same. So 22% over the last month. And this is encouraging because in a way, these are like long shots, a lot of these projects, and investors may be more reluctant to invest in these because there's less security, but obviously they can see the potential. They can see that it is time to start putting money into some of these projects. And you can see now they are fighting against the 200 days moving average as well, which we are pretty much at right at the moment. And again, it's not that it means anything, just the fact that we're crossing a line doesn't mean anything. But what you got to remember is that there are many traders that use these lines extensively. So it's almost like a self-fulfilled prophecy that if there is enough strength to break through, then there is extra interest that is coming on board to push the prices higher. But so far, nothing at the moment. At best, this is the only of the charts that we're looking at that's growing as much as Bitcoin. All the others are growing less than Bitcoin. So the top 10 coins, excluding Bitcoin, have underwhelmed over the last couple of months, so to speak. And the best investment would have been in Bitcoin itself. Okay, so we've done about 50 minutes. So let me know what particular subjects you want to talk about, or any particular setups that you want me to look into, or any coins or any projects, so on. And if you can, guys, show your faces as well, it makes it all more interesting. Anybody has any questions? No, everybody looking away or just like obscuring their camera. So otherwise, I will give Jonathan. Do you want to say a couple of words about the next session and or Cardano in general, the Cardano ecosystem, and remind everybody, for those that are new to this, that Jonathan runs a Cardano Q&A session after we close that in a few minutes. Um, and yeah, Jonathan, go ahead. Anything that's worth sharing that you have noticed in the last few days?
Good morning. Yeah, I haven't been paying an awful lot of attention this week. I'm mostly bitter because everyone's gone to consensus in Miami and I'm not there. You know? It's been interesting to see new uh, new proposals coming into the Cardano treasury. So because Cardano has a governance setup where anybody that holds ADA can vote on what happens with the token. And that's seen as the big differentiator between Cardano and Bitcoin, for example. Um, Anybody can put in a new proposal to request money from the Treasury, which is about $1 billion. And you don't ask for $1 billion, obviously, but you could put in a request. And so there's been a few requests in lately. One of them was for uh, a development on a new protocol that will allow TypeScript, which is the most common programming language on the well, probably the most common language now, certainly on the web, to be able to use that to run a Cardano node in your browser. So effectively, it becomes a fully decentralized, full blockchain node that just runs in your browser. So, at the moment on Bitcoin, when you're starting up a node, you're talking about investing in tens of thousands of pounds of hardware and high power usage and so on and so forth. Now with Cardano, you can actually just install a browser extension, suddenly you've got a full node running. And that's the sort of future. And so that didn't pass the first round. It hit the threshold of 60. You have to hit 67% voting for it, and it hit like 66.4 or something. Um, so that was a no, but effectively they just resubmitted the application, and so it's back on the table again. And so we're going to. It's quite interesting to see if that gets through or not. And one of the sort of big things I do keep thinking about is this is the problem when technology doesn't progress with the wave of new development. So Bitcoin has got a challenge coming up in a few years' time, granted, um, as to whether it can become quantum resistant. So I'm sure you've heard of quantum resistance in Bitcoin being a big problem, or in blockchain being a big problem, and that in a few years' time, quantum computers will be so advanced that they'll be able to wipe out um, all our security, all our passwords. They'll be able to crack all our wallets and banking systems, and that is looking very plausible with the current or yesterday's level of encryption. Bitcoin is part of that era. Um, Now, since then, we've developed quantum resistance cryptography, and that is being implemented in the latest blockchains. So, Midnight, for example, the privacy chain has quantum resistance baked in, um, and Bitcoin doesn't. And so, there's actually a significant amount of Bitcoin in wallets that were created before quantum resistance possible. And no matter what Bitcoin does, it's going to have to relinquish some control over significant number of Bitcoin out there on the market. Um, and if there was a governance structure around Bitcoin, then all Bitcoin holders could vote on what we do with that. Do we just cut off those wallets that are too old to make the move to quantum resistance, or do we mark all those wallets so that any transactions that happen from them are ignored? So effectively making those Bitcoin redundant. Now, all of those are possible, but only with a joint discussion, consensus being brought, and everybody deciding together that's what they're going to do. And at the moment, there's no way to do that on Bitcoin. You just have the protocol itself, and what happens will be what happens. And the likelihood is that those Bitcoin will end up being stolen, potentially by the first people to leverage quantum computers in hacking attacks, and so you'll end up probably with North Korea owning a whole load more Bitcoin. And this is why it is important to stay up to date with the latest developments, cryptography procedures, and so on and so forth. And why all the altcoins that we're seeing are not moving as slowly, not moving as quickly as Bitcoin in terms of price, but they are crucial and they're the future. And there will be a handover of power at some point where problems on Bitcoin aren't being solved because they can't adapt and change quickly enough because they don't have governance, will start to flow into the altcoin market. So those charts were making me think, yeah, this is a state now, and you're definitely wise to get into Bitcoin. But what's the inflection point? When do we move from Bitcoin being the king to Ethereum or Cardano or whatever it is down the road? So yeah, that's what I've been thinking on. It's pretty heavy stuff, but this is technology. We're struggling with it every day, don't we? With trying to
In
figure
a
out how to
way,
do
yeah.
QR coding.
In a way, kind of the first wave of smart contract platforms like Ethereum, or Ethereum-based chains and Cardano and so forth have come because of the inability of Bitcoin to adapt with the times. So this will probably be another reason and another wave of projects that are born, on the back of that. I imagine.
Mm. Yeah, and it's not like Bitcoin doesn't innovate. They've got the Lightning Network and their super fast transactions. They've got this Taproot
Mm.
extension, which is the whole way to bring smart contracts to Bitcoin. And we have got uh, Bitcoin DeFi coming, so that you'll be able to take loans out against your Bitcoin holdings. Um, but these big, hard decisions that need everybody to get together and decide on, there's no mechanism for it at the moment. So it's yeah, it's a challenge, but we'll see.
Yeah, and this is what we're talking about every day, guys. So this is it's a good example of the practical issues that people are working towards on a daily basis in crypto and different projects, and you might never have heard of them, but these are the things, the problems that are trying to be resolved,
Mhm.
and eventually, when we are using crypto to do everyday things, and it's the default go-to for financial transaction and everything. Obviously, those mechanisms have to overcome all these problems. Otherwise, you'll never move the financial rails onto this if those are not sorted.
Mm.
So Eric was asking, is Cardano quantum computer resistant?
Uh, yes. So there again, even in Cardano, there are bits that will need to move with the times to get upgraded, but there is a strong progression down that path already. So in the next year or two, all of Cardano will be quantum safe, and same can be said for lots of the altcoin blockchains. So it's a rosy picture in the altcoin space from a technology security perspective. Um, yeah, quantum security is a fascinating thing. Extremely difficult to get your head around in terms of what the threats are. But I have watched a good YouTube video on it. If so consider me an expert. Uh, one of the proposals in the Treasury at the moment is from IOG, the guys who developed Cardano um, originally, and they've put in a request for um, funding to help them deliver on Pogon, it's called, which is the next phase of Bitcoin DeFi. So that's actually to bring um, from the founders, from the creators of IOG themselves, a Bitcoin integration that will allow smart contracts interaction between Cardano, Bitcoin, Midnight, and then all the other Midnight ecosystem blockchains as well. So we'll be able to have, funds flowing between those ecosystems in a trustless bridge mechanism, which is very powerful. So that, the potential down the road for all these altcoin chains is really high, and Bitcoin's value won't be lost. It'll move. It'll shift over to other chains, which is the exciting bit. So yeah, if you've got ADA, you're into governance at all, you can vote yourself, or you can assign your vote power of your ADA holdings to a delegated representative, and then that DREP will vote on your behalf on some of these big technical decisions that you need a academic's brain to get your head around. But yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Fantastic. On that note, I it's now the end of this session, so I wish you all a fantastic weekend. And I recommend that you go and follow Jonathan's session as well, because just to hear more about these interesting subjects, and also about different projects they will highlight and um, and give you demonstrations of things that are going on within the Cardano ecosystem. So you all have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you again next week, same place, same time. Bye,
Magic.
everyone.